Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at the sources you shared on Germany's, incredible rise after the wars. Our mission, really, is to unpack how a nation could go from total defeat, not once, but twice, to becoming Europe's absolute economic leader.
It's quite a story. And it's not just about bouncing back, is it? It's resilience, yes, but also very specific, deliberate choices in politics and economics. So we'll trace that path, look at the key moments, the economic models they use, the politics involved. What's fascinating here, I think, is how today's success seems rooted in remembering those, profound failures.
Absolutely. And to really get the scale of that success, we have to start with just how low things got. Let's go back to 1918. World War I ends. Germany's defeated. Resources gone. Millions dead. Society just completely unstable.
Right. Utter exhaustion. And then immediately the external pressure ramps up. The Treaty of Versailles in 1919, it wasn't about rebuilding. It felt and was designed like punishment.
Huge reparations, losing key industrial land, military handcuffs, basically.
Exactly. And the sources point out, people like John Maynard Keynes were saying right then, look, this is too much. It's going to wreck their economy permanently.
And potentially sow the seeds for future conflict.
Which is tragically what happened. His warnings and others were pretty much ignored.
And the economic fallout was almost immediate, wasn't it? The early 1920s.
Yeah.
Hyperinflation.
Oh, it's hard to even comprehend. We're not talking, 10% inflation. We're talking money losing value by the hour.
The stories are legendary.
They really are. By late 1923, the mark was worthless. The sources mention people literally using wheelbarrows for banknotes.
Getting paid twice a day because morning wages were useless by evening.
Burning money for heat because it was cheaper than actual fuel. Farmers refusing cash, wanting goods. Imagine the chaos.
That kind of thing doesn't just hurt the economy, it destroys trust. In everything. Government, money, capitalism itself.
Absolutely. It created this deep, deep psychological scar, a craving for stability above all else. And you see that echo later in how they structured the post-WWII economy.
Was there any recovery before the next disaster?
There was a brief period, yes, the mid to late 20s. International help, like the Dawes Plan in 24, restructured the payments. Foreign loans came in, currency stabilized for a while, industry picked up. Berlin even became this vibrant cultural and scientific center.
But fragile, right, built on borrowed money.
Very fragile. And when the big one hit the 1929 Great Depression, it all collapsed again. Those foreign loans vanished overnight.
And Germany got hit harder than most.
Much harder. Unemployment just exploded, millions out of work, factories closed, and that memory, that fear of the 1923 chaos, it came flooding back. It created fertile ground for extremism.
Leading tragically to the rise of the Nazis and the next catastrophe, World War II.
Yeah. Which brings us to the second collapse. And this one was, if possible, even more total.
The sources describe 1945. It's just devastation.
Unimaginable scale. Allied bombing had flattened major cities. Berlin, Dresden, Hamburg rubble. Industry, railways, homes, infrastructure, all shattered. A physical dismantling.
And beyond the physical, the moral dimension, the shock when the full extent of Nazi crimes, the Holocaust, came to light.
Germany wasn't just broke and ruined, it was a pariah state, morally and politically isolated.
And then, straight out of the war, comes the division.
Right. The country gets carved up. 4 occupation zones, US, UK, France, Soviet Union, and almost immediately that division becomes the fault line of the Cold War. 2 Germanys, 2 systems, head-to-head.
Which sets up the next chapter, the truly remarkable part. How do you get from that level of ruin, zone zero, to Europe's economic powerhouse in, 15 years? Okay, let's unpack this. The Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle.
It seems almost impossible, doesn't it? But it came down to, really, 2 main things initially. Seed money and a smart plan. The money came through the Marshall Plan in 1948, U.S. aid. Crucial.
But lots of countries got Marshall Plan aid. What did West Germany do differently?
That's the key. Under Chancellor Adenauer, and importantly his economics minister, Ludwig Erhard, they didn't just patch things up. They used that aid strategically to modernize, to build new, efficient industries, not just restore the old ones.
Okay, but hold on. If all your factories are bombed, how do you suddenly meet demand for goods? Where did the workers come from?
Ah, good point. It was a mix. First, sheer will. You had the Trümmerfrauen, the rubble women, literally clearing bombed cities by hand. Incredible effort. Second, a huge influx of labor. Millions of ethnic German refugees expelled from Eastern Europe came west, skilled, desperate for work, often cheap labor initially. And third, the economic model itself quickly generated buy-in from workers.
Let's talk about that model. The Soziale Marktwirtschaft, social market economy, sounds like a contradiction.
It does, but it was genius, really, and deeply shaped by that Weimar hyperinflation trauma. It wasn't pure free market chaos. Erhard's idea was, yes, encourage competition. Let entrepreneurs thrive, make high-quality stuff. But crucially, build strong social safety nets underneath. Things like unemployment insurance, pensions, healthcare, and importantly, worker involvement in company decisions, co-determination.
So the social part wasn't a reluctant add-on. It was seen as necessary for the market part to work, to prevent the social breakdown they'd seen before.
Precisely. That's the insight. It bought social peace. Workers felt secure. They trusted the system wouldn't abandon them like in the 20s. That stability meant loyalty, productivity, high skills. Combine that with strong international demand for German engineering cars, machines, and boom, growth took off.
And the technical pieces were vital too. Currency reform.
Absolutely essential. The 1948 currency reform replaced the worthless Reichsmark with the stable Deutschmark. Overnight, it killed inflation and made saving and investing rational again.
And joining European structures early on.
Yes. Integrating West Germany into things like the European coal and steel community anchored it firmly in the West and opened up markets. By the mid-50s, West Germany wasn't just recovering, it was booming. By 1960, the miracle was undeniable, Europe's leading economy.
But always against that stark backdrop of the other Germany. The contrast must have been intense.
Absolutely. While the West boomed with its social market model, East Germany, the GDR, took the Soviet path. Central planning, state control. The focus was all on heavy industry quotas, not necessarily what people wanted or needed.
And the quality of life showed it.
Big time. Sources mention that, yes, the East had basic education, some industries functioned, but consumer goods were scarce, often poor quality, lots of waiting lines, a visible gap compared to the West's shops full of goods.
And that gap had a physical symbol.
The Berlin Wall, built in 1961. It wasn't just politics. It was, in a way, an economic necessity for the East. They built it to stop the brain drain, to stop their own skilled workers from leaving for the prosperity they saw in West Berlin. A stark admission.
Ironically, that wall, while horrific, probably strengthened West Germany's position in the long run, cemented its role.
It definitely did. It highlighted the success of the Western model, made West Germany the indispensable frontline state in the Cold War, and deepened its commitment to the European economic community. That political capital was huge.
Which they would definitely need for the next massive challenge. Fast forward to 1989. The wall comes down.
Suddenly this unbelievable opportunity, but also this daunting task, reunification. Merging two vastly different countries.
The scale of that integration is hard to grasp.
Immense. The sources talk about the sheer cost, rebuilding East German infrastructure, propping up its economy, aligning social systems. The financial transfers from West to East over the decades are estimated at over €1 trillion. Maybe even 2 trillion, depending on how you calculate it.
Wow. 1 or 2 trillion euros. That just shows how far behind the East German economy had fallen.
It was a shock to the system. When the wall fell, many East German state-owned industries basically collapsed overnight. They weren't competitive. Unemployment in the East shot up. Productivity lagged way behind the West. It was a painful, difficult transition for many people.
But politically, the decision was made. Full integration.
Yes. And that reunification, despite the costs, really solidified Germany's place as a unified, legitimate leader in Europe. It paved the way for its central role in the expanding EU.
But even after reunification, there were more adjustments needed, right, to stay competitive globally.
That's right. By the early 2000s, even unified Germany faced challenges. Its labor costs were high, the system felt a bit rigid. This led Chancellor Gerhard Schröder to push through some really significant and very controversial reforms. Agenda 2010.
Agenda 2010. Often cited now as key to Germany's resilience, but deeply unpopular at the time. What did they involve?
A lot of it centered on the labor market, the Hartz reforms. Basically, they involved cutting some unemployment benefits, making the conditions for receiving welfare stricter, encouraging more flexible work arrangements.
Trying to make the labor market more dynamic, less expensive for employers.
Exactly. The aim was to reduce unit labor costs and boost employment. It caused a lot of social pain and protest initially. But most economists looking back say these reforms significantly improved Germany's competitiveness just as the Eurozone was solidifying. It helped them weather the financial crises later on much better than many neighbors.
So fast forward to today. Germany stands as, well, the engine of Europe.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, yes. It's the largest economy in Europe, fourth largest in the world, nominally. Still powered by those high-value industries.
Cars, machinery, chemicals, increasingly green tech too, very export-focused.
Still running those big trade surpluses. And that underlying strength, that vocational training system, is still key.
The dual education system, apprenticeships alongside schooling.
It's still considered a world-class model for developing skilled workers, perfectly matched to what those advanced industries need. Constantly feeding the pipeline. And politically. Germany's absolutely central now, in the EU, in NATO, shaping policy on everything from economics to climate to security.
So wrapping up this deep dive, when you look at that whole arc, 1918, 1945, 1990, today the big takeaway from the sources isn't fate or luck.
Not at all. It's about deliberate choices, made again and again, often under intense pressure.
Like what? What were the core choices?
Well, choosing democracy after the Nazi era, building that unique social market economy, that blend of competition and social welfare, consistently investing in skills, education, infrastructure, and, crucially, committing to Europe and international partnerships rather than going it alone. Integration, not isolation.
It's an incredible story of reinvention. Germany didn't just reinvent itself, it helped shape the entire continent. A powerful lesson in resilience.
And in the power of systems, of choosing long-term stability, investing in people and social cohesion, perhaps, over maximizing short-term gains, It paid off.
Which leaves us, and you, with a final thought, thinking about those deliberate choices. Which specific element strikes you most as the key driver? Was it the early trauma driving the need for the soziale Marktwirtschaft? Or maybe those later, tougher Agenda 2010 reforms that secured competitiveness for the modern era? Which choice was ultimately more decisive for Germany's sustained success? Something to think about based on the sources.